What's up, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more punk rock, and we're back with some more Operation Ivy. So I would say normally that means we're talking ska punk, but this is more a straightforward punk rock tune. We're going to listen to Jaded, third tune on the overall compilation, just called, I think, Operation Ivy. But it was also the third tune on their only record, Energy, I believe 1989. And then again, this compilation came out after they had, dissolved and moved on to other things. And I think it was 91. This is a reissue that I had the one like from 91 when I first got into Op Ivy, which would have been, I don't know, like 94, 95. They were definitely one of the earlier bands after Propagandhi. Probably were after the Subhumans too, but ultimately very early on. And yeah, I've loved them ever since. It's a shame to me that they were so short-lived. I do think, with all respect to the other bands they've been in, but yeah, with all respect to like Rancid and so on, Transplants, I think Operation Ivy, is the best iteration of some of the people involved. And again, shout out to Jesse Michaels. Love his lyrics. Very like thoughtful, considered person. I've enjoyed a couple of his other musical projects, even though I don't like have the records. I've just heard some of the tunes via YouTube. But yeah, like a really cool person, really good lyricist. So we're going to listen to a tune, Jaded, which is, as far as I can tell, again, nothing on this channel is definitive or authoritative, but as far as I can tell, it's a song that fits right in with a number of songs in the punk rock world, including, Jello Biafra and the Dead Kennedys, Anarchy for Sale, I suppose also, Propagandhi's Ska Sucks and so on, as well as perhaps This Might Be Satire, but songs which lament and lambast the punk rock community, which, by the late 80s and even by Jello Biafra's assessment by the mid 80s, was becoming a sort of like commercialized plastic facade of the original sort of ethos and culture of the punk rock scene and punk rock bands. It was becoming more about sort of an image and about just, playing a bunch of shows to kind of, get on a major label eventually and so on. And there was this sort of increasing acceptance from the mainstream music industry, but like acceptance only of the image, only of the sort of rebellious attitude, but not really sort of the ideas that were constituting what it really means to be punk. So basically, it's a knock on the punk rock scene, and not only on like the commercialization and sort of like placid or like tranquilizing of punk rock messages, but it's also, there's a line early on about like, oh, your $15 that you just paid to get into this all ages show or whatever. Well, that went straight up the promoter's nose. The idea that these, club runners, don't necessarily fit into the ethos of a lot of the bands that are playing there, and, the sort of like addiction and corruption and sort of focus on money that runs through like local music scenes, and in a way is already sort of like a perversion of the ethos and the values of the punk rock world. So yeah, again, I think this is Jesse Michaels basically saying that like in the face of that, not only is it easy to be jaded, but he even makes the point with, I don't know if it's like the chorus or if it's like technically the interlude to the chorus, but it's like, or the refrain. But it's like, I'd like to say that I'm different. I'd like to say that I'm kind of like better than this, and that I don't have any hypocrisy, or I don't have any, maybe desire to kind of like have this band make it like really well, and, therefore perhaps get messages out to a wider audience. But he's like, but that would be a lie. Like, I'd like to say that I'm different, but at the end of the day, maybe I'm part of why the scene, is not necessarily going where it should be. And again, I love anyone who's willing to cast, a mirror on themselves, or to cast a critical eye on their own thoughts, their own words, their own behaviors, whether they're things they've said or done in the past, or even, questioning what you're doing now, and just always trying to like reassess and, critique yourself as much as anyone else. So I think there's a bit of that flavor too, in the sense that he's saying, I'd like to say that I'm different, but that would be a lie. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on. Let me know if you have a different take, or like, a more specific take in one way or another. I'm always interested to hear. But let's get to it. This is Operation Ivy, Jaded, heard here on their 1991 like compilation album, though as I said, this is a reissue. the suspense, like the anticipation.
Someday I will do, but I won't burn my bridges, be just another jaded fool.
And in fact, maybe that part is more about like the irony of the like jaded like cynicism. Yeah, it's fucking great. I wouldn't have it any other way. Trust me, if I said differently, it'd be a lie. Yeah, I think there might have been one of the layers there that perhaps I was remembering differently. But either way, I do think it is a shot at sort of the sort of like winnowing out of the actual ethos and sort of motivations and impetus behind punk rock music and sort of the early punk scene. So again, and this is something that even like 3 or so years before this, Jello Biafra was railing against, in which a number of bands of a more like philosophical and DIY nature in the 90s would rail at even more, as again like pop punk was sort of like accepted by the mainstream, but as long as you didn't really want to rock the boat, you just wanted to sing about relationship drama and so on. Which, to be clear, I'm not really taking a shot at pop punk. It has its place, but again, I understand why some of the people who sort of had to fight like really sort of like repressive cultural authorities who try to ban their music or at least put warning stickers on it and make it so kids couldn't buy it and like whatever. The idea that they would look at some of the like cookie cutter, like, hey, we have a purple mohawk and we have some screamy songs about like being upset emotionally, which again, there's nothing wrong about writing songs about being upset emotionally, but I do understand why some bands that were really trying to be punk in their ethos and their music would look at some of those developments and be like, what the fuck, this is not even punk rock anymore. So yeah, let me know if you have a different take on this, or again, at least in regard to that one layer, which now again I'm thinking is more just kind of like an ironic sort of cynicism or pessimism in relation to being jaded. It's like, oh yeah, this is all perfect, this is all great, and if I said different, trust me, I'm definitely lying. But yeah, so let me know what you think. We've got to get into more Operation Ivy. I've been doing punk rock reactions for a while now. I've done a couple Op Ivy reactions, but given how important they've been to me, despite their relatively limited output, it is surprising that I've only done a couple, whereas, I've done a few dozen Bad Religion, a few dozen Propagandhi songs, and so on. So we'll come back for some more Operation Ivy. Let me know what you think of this. I will see you next time.